Welcome back to another episode of Bucket List Living with Brad Norwood. Hey, today's our last episode of season one. What a joy this season has been for me. I hope you have enjoyed it as well. I started a podcast out of fear back in March when the pandemic had hit and I didn't know what else to do. But I took some of my own advice and said, you know what, Brad, it's time to conquer fear. The voices in my head have been telling me, start a podcast, start a podcast. And maybe those were from my heart, my gut, but my head, the trash, kept saying, you're not a podcaster. You don't even listen to podcasts. Who would listen to you? But I went ahead and did it anyway, according to my own coaching. I thought, you know what? It's time. Travel was non existent, obviously, still is to this day. But I thought, it's time to start podcasting. How important it would be to bring other people onto my platform to give them a voice and to talk to them about living a bucket list life, about living with intentionality, challenging yourself each and every day, and envisioning what that experience looks like, not only for you, but for those that you're surrounded by in your life. So I've been blessed. We did 20 plus episodes this year in season one. My goal for next year is to do 30 episodes at least in 2021. And I just want to thank all of you who have subscribed, not only to the YouTube channel, to the podcast channels, wherever you listen to the podcast from, but I really want to thank those of you who have reached out. I've received a few emails. I've seen some of you out at the golf course or in town, restaurants, wherever, and you come up and ask, hey, how's the podcast going? And I tell you what, that lights up my world on the inside to know that I'm bringing you some value and some significance. We talk about in my course that there's two things that every man needs, and that is unconditional love and significance. And when you pour those into other people, you become filled with them as well. And so to those of you that have reached out, to those of you that subscribe and give the reviews, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being so supportive. I've had some wonderful guests on the show this year. It started with Hal, and then we moved into Jesse Cole. You may have heard of Jesse Cole, Find Your Yellow Tux. And now listen what I did with my podcast as well. I challenged myself at the beginning of the year with my bucket list. My ultimate challenge was to read a book a month. And I'm not a reader, okay? In fact, I'm much less of a reader than I am a podcaster. But I started with a book a month. And here I am in December and finishing book number 12. But Jesse Cole was on the podcast. And then I read his book as part of my challenge, Find Your Yellow Tux. I encourage you to connect with Jesse Cole. You can go back through a past episode where Jesse Cole was on, connect with him, learn about the Savannah Bananas. My goodness, what an incredible organization he's got. But check out his book and Find Your Yellow Tux. That encouraged me to then read a guest that was on his show, David Meerman Scott. And I read Fanocracy, another great book to read. I would love to have David on my podcast in 2021. So David or Jesse, if you're listening by chance, please reach out to me. I'll be reaching out to you as well, but would love to have David on the show and talk about Fanocracy and creating fans of your brand. My good friend Jimmy Dykes was kind enough to come on and talk about intentional living. And I'll be honest with you guys, Jimmy is a mentor to me, and he is where I get a lot of my content, a lot of my values from. And Jimmy's book, The Film Doesn't Lie, is an incredible read, an examination into your own life. You want to know how you're being intentional, or if you're being intentional? Read The Film Doesn't Lie. Examine your game film. Look at who's on the court with you. It's a great read. And Jimmy, thanks for being on the podcast. We had Lumber One, and Adam and Matt Wells were on. They were the last trip that I was able to do because of the pandemic, and so thankful that they came on. Good buddies, and we've been through a lot together. You can hear the emotion in my voice, what that means. We had a Guinness World Record holder, Arthur Greeno. Are you kidding me? This guy is incredible. He's a multi-unit Chick-fil-A owner. I encourage you to listen to that episode. how Chick-fil-A operates, how being intentional and creating your culture matters. Arthur said something that on the episode that has stuck with me since that day. How you treat your people behind the scenes is how they will dance for you upon the stage. Isn't that so wonderful? How you treat your people behind the scenes is how they will dance for you on the stage. People are important. They'll never forget what you gave them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And so I've read Arthur's book, Breaking Conformity. You want to learn about busting myths in your life and making simple myths come true? I challenge you to get Arthur's book, Arthur Greeno's book, Breaking Conformity. What a great read. And then through that inspiration, his book, Arthur challenged me to reach out and read Creating Magic by Lee Cockrell. Oh my goodness. You want to know the ins and outs of Disney and how magic really is created? This is the nuts and bolts of what I want to teach people. And Lee does it better than anybody ever has. In fact, it comes full circle. Walt Disney was a hero of Jesse Cole. And so those are just five of the books that I've read throughout my challenge, but they related to the podcast. And I share that with you today because that is the intentionality. And by the way, I left one off and I don't have it sitting here with me because it's going to be my first book for 2021. But a big thanks to my friend Brian Sexton for being on the show as well. His book, People Buy from People. I can't wait to read it. It's about being intentional. Brian hosts the podcast, The Intentional Encourager. And so I challenge you to reach out to Brian, listen to his podcast as well, and read that book with me in 2021. I'm starting in January. In fact, if you'd like to read it together and do a book study, I bet my good friend Brian would even hop on a couple of Zoom calls with us and go through a couple of chapters with us and pour some more knowledge and intentional encouragement into us. But again, what I wanted to tell you about is those were the challenges that I had that were on my bucket list for 2020. Part of it went awry. We couldn't travel. We couldn't do things, but we could always do kind acts for others. We could always be surrounded with people that we love and with people that need love. And we can always challenge ourselves to grow and be better. And so I did in the book a month challenge that I proposed to myself, in the podcast challenge that I had to overcome, and that fear that I had to overcome. I tied the two together. And yeah, it's 5 or 6 books, but how awesome that has been and fulfilling that's been for me going through 2020. And now we head into a new year. And again, I hope to have at least 30 episodes of Bucket List Living this coming year. And so I want to ask you if there's someone you would love to hear on the podcast, or even you yourself as a fan would love to be on the show, I would love to have you. Would love to have you. And so I want you to reach out to me. My email address is brad at dreamitpro.com. That's DreamItPro.com. Brad at dreamitpro.com. If you or someone you know wants to be on the show, reach out to me. We've got 30 episodes to do in 2021. And while that doesn't seem like a lot to many big time podcasters, and probably isn't, it's a lot to me. And that's a significant challenge to continue to grow this platform. One other person I want to give a huge shout out to, another book that I'm going to add to my list for 2021. In fact, Ben Brookhart at Power Home Solar. Man, what a team you guys have. And I had the benefit, after having been on the show, Ben reached out to me and we talked a couple of times, and I ended up coaching Power Home Solar through the My Bucket List Life Plan. And Ben has a book called Success at a Category 5, Reaching Success at a Category 5 by Ben Brookhart. That's on my list for 2021. But Ben, thank you too for not only being on the show, but for then becoming a client and going through the program, investing in your people, loving your people. I know we've had multiple conversations about that, but for everyone else that's listening, when you love your people, you pour encouragement into them. You show them your intentionality, and you teach them how to become intentional with you. It's the ICE challenge that you've heard about in one of my episodes. Be intentional, challenge yourself, and envision what that experience looks like when you've completed the task. Hey, I hope you've had a great 2020. I know it hasn't been wonderful, but I hope you overcame the obstacles that were presented to you. I hope you find yourself in these last few weeks of 2020 reflecting back and going, even through a pandemic, I got better. And if you didn't, I want you to reach out to me so that we can come alongside of you to pour encouragement into you and help guide you through 2021. It's all about living the bucket list life. It's not about fancy cars, expensive watches and homes, extravagant travel. The bucket list life is all around you, and it's all about being intentional. So I leave you with this today. Go be intentional. Do a kind act for someone else. It sounds selfish, but it's strategic. Go buy something special for yourself as a reward, or put it on your list that when you achieve your next goal, that you will reward yourself. Keep going. Keep fighting the good fight, and don't ever give up, because the bucket list life is a life worth living. God bless you, and we'll see you in 2021.